So we're going to get things kicked off with a little introduction by someone that you guys might know, who's going to give us a little introduction to what the World Betterment Symposium is. And here we go.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the World Betterment Symposium. I am Alberto Carvalho, Superintendent of Miami-Dade County Public Schools. On behalf of our more than 350,000 students and 40,000 employees, let me commend you for being here today. I would also like to thank my good friend Robert Zuckerman and Florida International University for organizing this gathering of visionaries and thought leaders. Congratulations to all of you for taking part in this very important event. Your discussions today come at a pivotal time in history. You have the unique privilege of coming together to engage in meaningful conversations that could change the trajectory of world issues and how we approach such critical topics. I am sure today's symposium will be awe-inspiring as you exchange ideas, explore new concepts, and discover the role of various disciplines in making our world an even better place to live. I applaud you in your role as an involved global citizen. Enjoy your time together.
Well, why don't we have our celebrity famous, okay. I had the pleasure of meeting this young lady through a project that we're both involved with called the Bold Beauty Project, which is a project that's going on, which is photographs of disabled women to both give the models a sense of self-esteem in their own beauty, but also to expand and deepen our concept of what beauty is. Because our concept of beauty is very much shaped by magazines and what the media tells it is, and it's really much more than that. And as someone who, as a photographer who was doing portraits of people for upwards of 40 years, my sense of or definition or idea of what beauty is a lot different than that. For me, beauty is when people accept who they are, and then it comes forth. So our first presenter, Catherine, do you go Cat or Catherine? Cat Magnoli, was recently crowned Miss Wheelchair Florida for 2017. A teacher and author of children's books. I don't know how you do it, but it's like I wake up in the morning and there's already a message from her. And then I go to sleep at night and there's a message after I've gone to sleep. Do you ever sleep?
Not really, no.
Okay. Anyway, please welcome Cat Magnoli.
So, when I was young, I would sit at recess and I would watch all the kids play. And I wouldn't be able to because of being in a wheelchair. Then one day, I was sitting at my pool 20 years later, and I was still watching people play. And it dawned on me when a little boy came up to me and said that he felt sorry for me. That it was time that I make a decision to stop watching people and actually do something with my life. This is when I decided to write Cat Girl, The Adventures of Cat Girl, to give the full title. This is a story about a superhero in a wheelchair that helps kids who are being bullied, something that I experienced as a kid and now speak about in several different schools. This concept not only helped me better my life, but it also inspired a lot of other kids with and without disabilities to be kind to one another, to help one another. And I see it every time I go visit a school, how different their reaction is when I wheel in and they're saying, oh, I feel so sorry for you and things like that. And then when I'm done reading the story and I ask them, how do you feel about seeing me in a wheelchair? And their response is, you're so cool. Does your chair fly too? So I mean, that to me is just amazing. And that has also inspired me to not only write children's books, but to really embrace what I like to call my U-abilities, which is the unique abilities that we all have inside of us. this has opened so many doors for me because as Robert said, I never sleep. I'm always doing something. If I'm not reading and writing the kids, I'm doing modeling, or I'm a co-host in a radio show online, or I help out at the Center for Independent Living writers group called Stupendous Storytellers, which is, I love that title. Me and my friend Woody Beckham came up with it. Anyway, so all of this to say that once I embraced my abilities, I was able to be persistent. And one of the ways that I was persistent was I participated in the Miss Wheelchair Florida pageant 3 years in a row. And the first year I got second runner-up, the second year I got first runner-up, and then this year I went in and, to be completely honest, did not think that I was even going to make it to the top 3. I went in a totally different, mindset, because all the other 2 previous years I was like, I'm gonna win and they're gonna love me, and I didn't win. So this year I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be cool, I'm gonna be nice to everyone, and I'm gonna think that I'm not gonna win. And then I won. So with my persistence, I was able to win, and now that I have won this prestigious title, my goal is to educate both children and adults on the abilities that we all have inside of us. You have it, my mom has it, Yessie has it, everybody has it. And we all need to go out there and show the world what we're made of, because there's much more to us than what meets the eye. And I mean, I'm just so excited. This is my first event that I'm doing as this title, and I'm just looking forward to all the other ones. And I want to thank the Miss Wheelchair Florida organization, which started in 1976, I think. I hope I got that right, because my state coordinator is going to see this later and she's going to be like, you're wrong. But hopefully I'm right. Anyway, it's a wonderful organization that, if you haven't heard about it yet, it basically teaches people with disabilities, women specifically, how to advocate for a cause, whether it's architectural, accessibility, or for me it's attitudinal, because I really want to change the perception that people have of people living with any sort of disability. It doesn't have to be just wheelchairs. It could be, a mental disability, or mental illness, or invisible disability. Whatever it is, I want to help change the perception of it by encouraging everyone to go out there and, like I said, embrace their abilities, embrace their uniqueness, and let the world see what they're made of. So thank you for letting me share, and I look forward to hearing everyone else's speech.
Does anyone have any questions for
Oh,
Kat?
yes. Does anyone have any questions for me? You can ask me anything.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
I don't have a question, but really like a comment, which is, to me, you're like a living example. This is
Like a
by
beacon.
example. And you're an amazing example of humility.
Thank you.
It doesn't let your disability stop you, or, quote unquote, from achieving. So, where can people see your books, your works? Do you have a website or?
Yes, you can order my books on realspecialeducation.com, and you'll get it autographed from me. So that's good. Does anybody else have any?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Yes, it's realspecialeducation.com.
And I wanted to ask you, have you, has your books been in the public school system, like Scholastic or some?
Well, Miami-Dade Public School District actually embraced it back last year, and they, ordered a large amount for all different schools in the Title I department. So that was a big thing for me. I was very excited when that happened, because, like I said, I just want to inspire people. I want to teach them, about acceptance and things like that. So I'm excited about that. Um, and as far as Scholastic, they are the hardest publishing company to get involved with. I don't know if you read up on them, but they rejected Dr. Seuss, I don't know how many times, I think it was like 18 times before they said yes, and the guy that wrote Clifford the Big Red Dog, they rejected him a bunch of times, so they rejected me once, but like I said, I'm persistent and I'm not going to give up, so hopefully I can move on to them. Right now I'm self-published.
Why would they reject your book? I mean,
Well, because, they wrote me that it just wasn't, coinciding with what they're doing right now. So I understood, like I said, I'm a persistent, determined person, so when I get the time, I will persist on and try again with them, because they like to reject people more than once. But that's not going to stop me. Nothing stops me. So, I'm self-published, so that's pretty much all I need right now.
That's a good attitude. Don't give up just because one person doesn't agree or like what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean. And some people get discouraged by that, but they go, oh, they reject me. And no, and this is what I teach my children and I teach Adrian. Because someone say no, that's just their opinion.
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So you just have to keep striving and just keep going for it and keep going for it. And eventually
Exactly.
you'll get your breakthrough and it'll happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Most definitely.
Thank you.
You know what I tell students sometimes is that when someone tells you no, often that's yes with sunglasses on.
You haven't seen the light.
I like that.
You feel free to use it, I don't
Oh, no, I
That's so
definitely will give you credit for it. I
And
like
that's another thing about credit.
Mhm.
As I said, I used to be a photographer in the Hollywood movie business, and back in 2011, I'm gonna come up here and talk.
Sure. And then we'll get to your question, I promise.
Will Smith hired me to come on the set of Men in Black 3 and do personal photography. I wasn't the photographer on the movie, but he hired me personally for a couple of days for his own archives. And I went on set, and at that time, 2011, I was in the wheelchair, but I was still able to get up and walk a little bit. So they were filming a scene. Oh, and he has a quote. Will Smith has a quote that I really like. Have I told you that quote?
Which one?
He says 99% is the same as nothing, which means either give 100% or don't bother. So they were filming a scene at Coney Island in New York where Will kind of walks up, pauses, and walks another direction. I noticed when he paused, if I was at a low angle, the Wonder Wheel would be centered behind him. I thought that would be a really cool photo. So I got off this thing, I laid on my back, I put my legs under some light stand, I got right in the position, and he did it like 3 or 4 times. And I got the shot, and in the end, when they said cut, he looked down and he saw it. He goes, "What are you doing down there?" And he's helping me up. And I told him his own quote. I said, 99% is the same as nothing. And he kind of smiled. And I said, I always give you credit when I use that quote. He goes, no. The first time you give me credit. The second time you say, somebody I know says 99% is the same as nothing. Third time you go, well, like I always say, 99% is the same as nothing. So that was.
I like that. That's good. I like that quote.
It's good to have like little things that I have like maybe a dozen quotes that help me through life much more than a PhD. Not
I
for
agree.
them, but anyway. So
I'm a big person of quotes. I like quotes a lot.
So
Yes.
I guess if there's one thing that you want us all to leave here with, what would it be?
Just to not give up, because we're all capable of doing anything that we put our mind and heart into. And no matter what people say, there's going to be a lot of people that try to bring you down. They're just, don't listen to them. Just keep on going, and you'll succeed in anything that you put in your way. Anything that you want can be yours if you don't give up.
So true.
Thank you very much, Patty. Adrian, do you want to come?
Is there someone else?
Okay, yeah, we can do
Only
something.
because my husband's actually.
Oh, got it, okay. Okay. All right. So, well, I'm gonna play another presentation for you. And this has to do with also with world betterment. I've found in my travels in the world, like the thing about language, knowing another language is very helpful. So I started a project of my own. I'm older, it's tough to learn a whole language, but I decided to learn one word. I learned thank you in about 40 or 50 languages. So even that one word, saying it to somebody, I'll be in Egypt or somewhere, or where was it? I met someone the other day. Oh, I was in Walgreens late last night, and the woman behind the cash register, she sounded Russian, but to us, anyone who comes from that area sounds. So I asked her where she's from, and she said Georgia, which is part of Russia, not Georgia here, but Georgia over there. And so I said thank you in her language, Madloba, and she goes, like that. And so she's like freaked out. So that was cool. So anyway, I'm a fan of languages. So a few years ago, I was happened to be watching, which I don't normally do. I was watching Katie Couric on TV, and there was a young girl there who at the time was 8 years old, named Mabu Loazo, a Haitian girl from Queens, New York, and she was with her mom. And this girl, at age 8, spoke 9 languages fluently, and so I was like really impressed by that. So I ended up finding her mom on Facebook, and we became friends, and I met them when I went to New York, and we photographed, and so now we're like family, we're close friends. So Mabu is now 11, and she was unable, because of previous commitment, to come in by Skype, which I said I'd do, so she pre-recorded her presentation. So I'm going to play that for you now. Let's see. Yeah, is that, let's go here.
Your Skype's on the bottom.
My mother asked me to think about a way to make the world a better place. Well, I laughed. I laughed because it's pretty straightforward. Well, to me at least. But please, don't tell me that it's because I'm young and naive and that's why I think that it's simple. Because that's not true. I might be young, but I'm not naive. Not naive to know that the day you make a conscious effort to know your Russian neighbor's first name and she knows yours, and when you greet the Chinese food delivery guy in his own language and he smiles, and when the Arabic-speaking taxi driver is taking you around Manhattan as he sings, and you could sing along, well, at least hum. Then you'll know that the world is becoming a better place for you and for me. Well, I've been homeschooled all my life. And the myth that's surrounding homeschooling is that, oh, the kids who are homeschooled, they don't have a good social life. They can't socialize. Well, I hear it every day. Even when my mother tries to stop them. Shh, Mabu's gonna hear that. I still hear it every single time. But deep down inside, I know that the people who truly believe that homeschooled kids are aliens are the ones who will never greet the Chinese man. And they will never be able to sing along with the Egyptian taxi driver. Just because he or she's Egyptian or Chinese. Just because that person's different. Well, you see, my mother has a rule for me, and the rule is that whenever I'm spoken to in a language, I have to answer in that language. So my mother speaks French to me every day, and I have to answer in French to her every day. And my daddy in Creole and my aunt in Spanish. Well, I got accustomed to the rule, but it wasn't too long ago that I chose to question it. Here's what my mother answered to me. Don't you realize that when you speak more languages, the more doors that you open, the more barriers that you break? I was still not convinced. And then my mother explained. Well, so Mabu, tell me, are you happier when one friend comes over or when 10 do? Well, I said 10. Like, more friends, better, more fun. So then, my pretty wise mother answered. She said, so don't you realize that the more languages you speak, the more friends you could have? Oops, I did not realize that. Thanks, Mom, for explaining that every language comes with its own culture, and that the more we understand our neighbor's culture, the more comfortable we become with one another. And then the world becomes a better place. I have a pretty large social media family, and I love interacting with them. But sometimes disturbs me how they could get on each other's throats just because they disagree on an idea. Just because they don't know each other. If they try to communicate and learn about each other, then they'll understand. One of the biggest problems of humanity is that we're scared of each other. And since we're scared of each other, we want to fight each other. But if we just learn to communicate and to help one another, because our neighbor's happiness is our own joy. And the more we understand, the better we can help. And the better we can help, our journey will go way faster. Communication is one of the missing links of the fragile chain of the world. And if we're going to spend more and more time on our cell phones, let's use it to learn about each other and to go to a different continent, to travel to a different continent in just one sitting on our phones. And like that, we'll learn about each other and we'll be able to understand culture. And as I previously said, the better we understand each other's culture, the more comfortable we'll be. Our journey on Earth will go faster and will be more effective. But without communication, our journey on Earth will be sterile and will lead to nowhere.
to have one project, one organization, where I do a number of things within that organization. As an individual with a disability, I was born with spina bifida, and so I see all the hardships of someone living with a disability in different ways, whether it be social, independence, services or the lack thereof, services in the community. So it's a number of different things. So going back since 2011, or prior to 2011, I wasn't really aware of all of the services that were available to me to help me become independent. So I had obstacles in the school system. They wanted to give me a special diploma because I had a physical disability, so I was labeled both learning disability and physical disability. So I had to overcome that and say, no, I graduated with honors AP and regular classes, so you're going to give me my regular diploma. You know, so it's these things that seem so simple, yet we have to fight or advocate for ourselves that much harder to overcome these things. So my ultimate goal is for society to see individuals with disabilities like everybody else, because we are like everybody else, right? Everybody has obstacles, everybody has dreams and goals, everybody has abilities, like it says the U-abilities. So that's what it's all about. Through my program, the disability programs and training, I advocate and I provide any service to help individuals become independent to the best of their ability. And I just say individuals because to me, I don't see the whole disability or not disability. If somebody comes to me and they need assistance with a resume, anybody can need assistance with a resume, whether you have a disability or not. So there's just certain things that the disability just doesn't matter, okay? So I do that through providing these services, whether it's independent living skills, employment services, benefits counseling. So many people don't know what benefits are available out there to them, how to get it, how to get the increase, why was I denied, what are the letters that I have to write, so many things. And I learned all of this back in 2011 where I had lost everything. I had lost my Medicaid, I had lost my SSI because I wasn't aware of all of these things that I know now. It's kind of like when we say, if I knew then what I know now, how much further along would I be? But I have an option. Either I sit there and dwell on that, or I keep it moving and just push forward from what I do know now and how far I have come in a very little short period of time, if you really think about it. So moving from there, I began through employment services because again, I had lost all my benefits, wasn't working. I was barely working part-time with like $300 and something from SSI. When I learned this, I became employed with Center for Independent Living as a receptionist and later on as an independent living specialist. So imagine someone with a disability, low self-esteem, no services, not educated on these things, now helping other people with disabilities obtain the same services that I need for myself, yet I had no idea what was going on. So that was a reverse psychology, helping other people while helping myself at the same time. So that was pretty awesome, and that's where my passion grew to help other people in my same situation. So I was there for about 4 years learning all of these skills. I regained all of my services. I went from SSI to SSDI. I got vocational rehabilitation again to help me with education and further employment. I renewed my Medicaid. All of these things just started falling into place. 4 years later, I'm working there, doing all of these things, and I said, you know what, it's time to move on. I was well educated in all these things, so I started my own work out there in the community as I was working here through now disability programs and training. So with the program that I'm launching with the disability programs and training is providing all of these things, like I said, in the Tri-County area throughout the community. Doing this, I started doing fashion shows and other social events at this organization I was working for back in 2011. I just, I met someone in the community that was into pageants and all these things, and I said, let's do a fashion show together. She's like, okay. She has a son that has autism. I go back to the organization I was working for, and I said, I want to do this fashion show. Mind you, I was a receptionist of this organization at the time. They're like, you can do whatever you want. You're not going out in the community, you can't go network, and you can't leave the front desk. Thank you. Appreciate that. So I made it happen some way, somehow. We did our first fashion show. which was pretty big in 2011. I did that with the organization for about 3 years, and it was Independence on the Runway, No Limits, which now is also incorporated by the person I was working with at the time. And we made this happen for 2 years, and each year it got bigger because we were showcasing the abilities of individuals with disabilities on the runway through fashion, fashion shows and all these different things. Then later on in 2014, when I was no longer with the organization, I incorporated what I do now, which began as inclusion through entertainment, now known as Funclusion. The goal of Funclusion originally was to showcase the abilities of individuals with disabilities through social inclusion. Then I just got all these things going on, and it all of a sudden expanded to solving social divisions of all types while having fun. So no matter what social background you came from, or whatever it was, this is the kind of event that the goal is to showcase what we can do. So prior to meeting Robert, I was always interested in the arts in some way, shape, or form, but I always had that mindset that, oops, that happens. You have a disability, you can't do that. You can't be in the public eye. You can't be in radio. Myself, nobody was telling me this, but I had that mentality that was blocking myself from these opportunities. And then little by little, what happens, you start involving yourself or surrounding yourself by these groups or people that can get you to that next level. All of a sudden, I'm doing radio commercials promoting the fashion shows through the Center for Independent Living. And then I got the opportunity to do voiceovers with Hot 105, 99 Jams. And all of a sudden, that disability didn't matter anymore because we all have a voice. Okay? A lot of times, people don't really care or see or absorb what your disability is. It's all about how you carry yourself. So suddenly I'm doing all these things. I'm like, wow, I've always wanted to do this. So it was an amazing opportunity. But then I started noticing that every time I would apply for something or get into an agency or something like that, I'm now considered a liability. I'm not considered a liability because I have a physical disability. I'm like, I'm not asking you to walk down the runway or anything. It was something totally different. So there are so many obstacles as individuals with disabilities to get into the public eye when it comes to entertainment. Something as easy as I wanted to do poster model or anything simple that did not require going down the runway. And if I have to go down the runway, so be it. So moving forward a few years later, I did get my first opportunity through an agency to do a runway show locally, and doors started opening. Then I realized if it's not out there, it's time to make it happen, right? If it's not already developed or if it's not already accessible or an opportunity for us, then let's make it happen. So that's kind of what motivated me to do inclusion through entertainment. Our first year, I got involved with Univision. Anybody familiar with Univision? Okay, so I got in touch with Univision in 2013, actually, because they have an annual campaign called Teleton USA, which fundraises for kids with disabilities throughout the country. First year, nothing happened. Second year, in 2014, I did it again. I reached out. They said, okay, if you can put an event together and raise $5,000, you can be a part of the show. Come to the station and we'll interview you. I said, you do realize I have 2 weeks from now to the end of December. That ain't gonna happen. But we made the event happen, and that's how it was born. We made the event happen. I said that was my first and last year. 4 years later, here I am still doing it. But I love it. Again, because it gives us a platform that we don't find otherwise. Do you mind if I talk about you a little bit about that, Robert? Okay. So then I met Robert after this happened, and here's a talented individual with photography that tells me, for a lack of a better term, Hollywood kicks you out because you now have a visual physical disability, right? So to me, Robert became the new face of what is inclusion through entertainment, because if you see Robert's photography, why in the world should somebody be limited or not pulled back for a talent that they've had their entire life because now they have a physical limitation? The chair and nothing else has anything to do with me taking pictures or me hosting or me putting on a show or whatever it might be. So that's just even more powerful. So this show is formed of individuals, again, with and without disabilities, through fashion, performers, musical performers, vendors, adaptive sports, a whole different types of entertainment. Poetry was incorporated last year. What I do is I literally pair people up with and without disabilities with similar talents to really get the visual. To really get the visual of that comparison, if you will, even though we're not comparing, but of what individuals with and without disabilities can achieve. The first video on there was our second year, and then, so I'll show that really quick. Memorial Adaptive Sports Program is one of our main sponsors, so that's why you see every.
Do you recall not long ago when you walked on the sidewalk? Innocent, remember all we did was care for each other. But the night was warm, we were bold and young. All around, the wind blows, we would only hold on to let go. Look, it's fire gun, we need someone to lean on. Look, it's fire gun, all we need is somebody to lean on. Look, it's fire gun, we need someone to lean on. Look, it's fire gun, all we need is somebody to lean on. What will we do when we get old? Will we walk down the same road? Will you be there by my side, standing strong as the waves roll over? Nights I don't longing for you to come home. All around, the wind blows, we would only.
So that's just to give you a little idea. And all these people that you see there, like all the kids and all these different abilities and stuff, they've been following me since about 2011, since the beginning. And it's to provide them with more opportunity, more social activity, more employment services, and more of the everything that we lack in the community. And it's a pretty big following. So that's just an overview of what that is about. Just to give you an idea, the first year that we did it through the Telethon, I didn't raise, it was a total loss. I invested more of my own money to make it happen because I wasn't doing any of this. I didn't have the foundation, none of that. Then the second year I did it again, we raised $1,200, I believe, that was given to the organization. Then the third year I was like, okay, now I have a whole group of students back at home, or a group of people back at home that need these same services. And then that's when I incorporated the disability programs and training, now providing it to the students, with the ultimate goal of providing the platform that this become by people with disabilities, for people with disabilities, increasing jobs and all those things, again, to dissolve those stereotypes that people with disabilities can't work, or sitting at home doing nothing. In fact, my career, if you will, began because I needed employment services, and now I'm a job coach. So how cool is that now you're providing a service that once helped you get to where you are today. And I see all the struggles of employers, why they don't give us the opportunity to work, the benefits, all the issues with the benefits that people don't know. So that's my purpose, my goal, my life mission, to educate all individuals, whether you have a disability or not, because at some point you're going to know somebody, or somebody's going to be in your family that needs these services. So probably over the time limit, but that's in a nutshell what I do with my life. And I thought I didn't sleep, but I sleep a little bit more than Kat.
So, can you just tell us briefly about this September 17th?
September 17 is my 4th annual Fun Inclusion event, with the same idea. So now we already have people coming in as far as wanting to be performers in part of the fashion show. We have the vendors, we have the poetry section. Robert's going to be one of our photographers, which is really awesome. And so that's September 17 at the German American Club in Hollywood. We're also going to have Catherine come and speak as a new winner of the new platform. which every year actually, whoever wins that year, they come and speak at the event. So that's pretty cool. And so we are looking for everything. We're doing ticket sales, vendors, vendors that provide services or whatnot that need to be out there a little bit. And that's pretty much it. So that's just one of the events that we do. We do Deaf Inclusion, we do the Memorial Adaptive Sports Program, and we do the Disability Expo every year. So some way, somehow, I became an event coordinator.
You're another person that lives by example.
Yes.
So you show us all. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Except for the lottery numbers, I don't have those yet.
I have a question. Do you find that if you don't use your those services that are available, then if you don't use it, you lose it? I mean, is that problem there?
Absolutely. Absolutely, depending on which problem we're talking about.
Extend funding affects funding. I mean, if people don't claim those services or they don't go after them,
Right.
the funding goes away.
If you don't claim the services that you know is out there for you specifically, you don't lose it, you lose it, and it goes on. That's one of the biggest issues, absolutely. But a bigger issue is that a lot of people don't know of the services that are available to them in the first place. And we have a misconception, as someone with a disability, we have a misconception of a lot of things, and we're worried about the wrong things because we're not well educated. So I just graduated from Partners in Policymaking through the Developmental Disability Council. And we had an opportunity to go to Tallahassee. Imagine me, Tallahassee, disability, microphone. So you have to take that microphone away from me. So I had the opportunity to actually speak in front of Congress and say, listen, we have a developmental disability, we're on the Medicaid waiver services. The Medicaid waiver services is to provide these medically needed services or medical supply and things like that. But that service tells me, Jesse, you can't work full-time, you're limited in income, you can only make $2,100 a month in order to continue your eligibility for these things. Social Security says, no, you can work and make up to $30,000 a year, no problem, right? So why should I, as an individual with a disability, be limited to working part-time, not working at all, or creating a special needs trust fund or some kind of funding? Because if not, I lose the benefits that maybe I don't need right now completely, but in the future I'm going to need it. That's where you go, you lose it, you don't use it, you lose it, type of thing. That's where that comes into play. So how do we advocate for that? I refuse to stay home. Like, this is literally my life. So if I stay home, that means not living, pretty much. So it's hard. It's really hard. But going back to what we were saying is, individuals in my situation rather stay quiet, because I witnessed it in Tallahassee and I just get goosebumps. We rather keep quiet, not to lose what we already have, the little services we already have, than to voice our issue. We rather voice the fact that our caregivers need a raise and need to get paid more money so that they can take better care of us, versus me saying, I don't need her, 24/7 or whatever the case may be, let me be more independent. So it's just a lot of barriers.
So, I've got someone waiting on Skype, so I have to
Perfect.
do that. But thank you very much. Okay, so maybe you can. I can't really give you the justice. So please introduce yourself and then tell us what you're going to tell us.
I'm George Mallinckrodt. I'm a psychotherapist, a human rights activist, and author of a book called Getting Away with Murder. It details the 3 years I worked in a Florida State Prison psychiatric ward. Before that, I worked for 2 years for an agency that provided mental health services to middle school children in the Dade County school system. So I've had the opportunity to see the trajectory of how mental illness can start early and then progress into adulthood with some pretty negative consequences. During my work in the prison, my patients were tormented, taunted, had food withheld, and were also beaten by correctional officers. My attempts to protect my patients in a morning staffing were met with silence and blank stares. Nobody wanted to take the initiative and do something about the guards that were a pattern of abuse of patients. For example, one sergeant at shift change would, and this is 8 o'clock in the morning, would go to one side of the unit and torment an extremely mentally ill man who would then bang his head against the glass door, the glass window in the door, kick the door. He would scream for 2 hours or more. Then this same sergeant would go to the other side and find the most mentally ill man on that side and do the same. And so these guards regularly instigated behavior, and despite my efforts, nothing changed. Finally, I advocated on the behalf of a patient who was beaten by guards, and I wouldn't go along with the program, which was essentially say nothing, do nothing, and look the other way. That's not how I roll. So 2 months later, I was fired, and 10 months later, I received a frantic phone call from a former coworker who said, they killed him. And what the guards had done was to take a man by the name of Darren Rainey, who suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, put him into a scalding hot shower where only they could control the temperature. And for those of you in Miami, the Miami Herald has detailed this story and many others about the Florida prison system. To bring you up to speed, the state attorney, Catherine Fernandez-Rundle, issued a report a couple of weeks ago where she decided not to move forward with charges against the guards that we knew put Darren Rainey in the shower to die this horrible death. When he was taken out, 90% of his skin was peeling off. One of his patients, one of his cellmates, actually was tasked with taking his skin and cleaning it up, and he put it in Darren Rainey's shoe and threw it out. This is a situation that I've tried to address at the state level. I went to Tallahassee and spoke before a number of committees to highlight this issue. But I also encouraged legislators to look at funding programs of mental health in our schools and communities. The program that I worked for in the Dade County school system is no longer in existence. So those psychologically at-risk children have no safety net in the Dade County public school system. So what typically happens when children do not get the mental health treatment they need is they suffer in silence. They're afraid of being bullied or ostracized, and their mental illness progresses untreated. And so my advocacy includes focusing on these types of programs. And what I have in mind for school systems is that these types of programs would include a holistic approach. In other words, we would have a nutritionist on the team, an exercise physiologist. In my former program, we had a psychiatrist, and I was tasked with counseling every child at least once a week. So this type of holistic approach is important because often children on these types of psychotropic medications have side effects. And for example, I had a 12-year-old girl on my caseload who had been taking medication for 3 years for schizophrenia. And she had tremendous weight gain. that's where the exercise physiologist and nutritionist come in, because that's one of the typical side effects of these medications. I'd also like to say that the diagnosis of ADD and ADHD is one of the most excessively diagnosed conditions for our children. And I'd like to see a common sense approach taken first. Let's take a look at what this child is doing at home. Are they getting exercise? What are they eating? Let's address that first, and then if medication is indicated, go that route. Too often we just simply dose the child and expect the problems to go away. These medications are basically a chemical coping strategy. They're no substitute for real coping skills and life strategies. So that's what I advocate for now as a psychotherapist. I'd like to see this nationwide. In the prevailing legislative environment, I think that's going to be a tough sell. But unless we address what's happening with our children, we are in essence abandoning them. So that's the thumbnail of what I want to do today, and I'd like to take some questions.
Any questions for, go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, I have a question. Because I heard of cognitive therapies, or I can't remember the name exactly.
Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
Right. Can that be instituted in the school? I mean, can that be done in the school system?
Oh, absolutely. And there's a lot of empirical data to suggest that that's a very good therapy. And essentially, at the core of that therapy is making children aware of how thoughts influence emotions, how emotions influence behavior, and how behavior then comes around and influences thought. So if we get into the school systems and we start to teach children about mental health and what it means to be mentally healthy, and actually work on their thinking skills, life strategy, coping skills, we're going to have children who, when they're mentally ill, don't hide it, but go and talk to the school counselor. And so this is an essential ingredient, is that sort of therapeutical orientation.
I have a second question. I really very interested in knowing if meditation and yoga, if it's in the school system, works for children, because I think it's really needed. I mean, more so than many other activities that they have in school that really don't address the problems of kids being so overwhelmed, not only by the bullies, but by the school, regimen, everything. So
you're absolutely right. Meditation, mindfulness, yoga, all of those things can be brought into the school system, because essentially those activities really help to center a child, calm a child. Quite often we're just expecting them to figure it out on their own. And I know that when I was a child, nobody ever talked to me about mental health. I would have taken those ideas in. As adults, we can plant those types of seeds, and they'll grow and sprout into something later on that's quite productive.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a
Kat.
question. How do you feel about occupational therapy, getting the kids interested in arts and crafts and things that can maybe help them also focus their energy on something creative? Would that help with the situation in school?
Well, as an artist, I do that as well. I can completely agree with you that we need arts, music, those sorts of activities to actually tap into the genius of our children. I believe that everybody has at least one area of genius, and our school systems are failing our children when we don't tap into those abilities that children have. And when children are doing something creative, they feel good, and that creates a positive cycle. So it's very important to have those types of programs in our school systems.
One more question here.
I know that here locally, there are organizations that provide etiquette, whether it's any type of disability etiquette, you know, to the school system, whether it be like the Down Syndrome Gold Coast or different ones, and it's free for the schools, literally no cost, but no one seems to be taking advantage of these programs for etiquette, whether it be for autism related disability or the whole thing with the cops and educating the cops on disabilities. So I'm an advocate for all of those things. So when I was in Tallahassee and I presented, I'm presenting pretty much, you know, so many different issues. What is the best approach in regards to, do we want to target the students directly first, or does it make sense to educate the teachers on these disabilities or on these differences and exceptionalities, and then target the students, if that makes sense? Because if the teachers don't know what is the issues or the situations with the parents, then we're not getting anywhere.
Yes, you make a good point, and I believe it could happen from the top down, to go to the superintendent to discuss these types of programs and the benefits, because the agency I worked for was called the Bertha Abbas Children's Center, and they had a lot of evidence to suggest that these children that had their issues addressed ended up doing better in school than the average. They ended up with better attendance records. Their parents reported that their behavior at home improved. So these are all very important programs, and I believe that speaking to legislators is important too. Once the superintendent is on board and realizes the value of it, then we have to find the money for it. And as you said, some are free, but some require more staffing. And one of the important things to realize is that half of all adults that suffer lifelong mental illness had signs by the age of 14. Excuse me. And 75% had signs by the age of 24. So this is a very underserved population. And so we've got to spend the money early to avoid spending a fortune later on. The Department of Justice, Department of Corrections here in Florida spends about $24,000 a year per inmate. Now, Florida is one of the cheapest states in the country. California, New York spend about $50,000, $60,000 per inmate. But even at $24,000 a year, I'd like to take that money, and I'm pretty sure I could treat 10, 20, 30 children in 1 year. And we're getting to their mental illness before it derails their life. And then keep in mind that right now we have about 30 million Americans on permanent disability, 10 million of which are there for psychiatric reasons. A program that starts early in life could make a huge dent in that number. And so when we turn people around and help them become productive members of society, that's a benefit to us all, and in the long run, it's more cost effective. It's fiscally responsible. And with the prevailing parties in power, they often talk about fiscal responsibility, and they like to cut social programs, but what's needed is to fund these types of programs to save money later on.
This young woman, Adrian Augustine, who came up and told us that you said, I'm 18 and I have my own record label. I'm the CEO and founder of my own record label. And that to me is kind of amazing and just really impressed me a lot. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Miss Adrienne Augustine, 18-year-old record label founder and CEO.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Adrienne Augustine. I'm also known as Miss CEO. Sorry. I'm 18 years old. I currently attend Charles W. Flanagan High School. I'll be graduating on June 3rd. And I'm the CEO of Clear Vision Music Group. Clear Vision Music Group is a record label I established after going through a production class in my high school. I was 17 years old. My parents believe in being your own boss by the age of 18. So I'm sitting in production class like, I'm almost 18, it's November, my birthday's in December, and I don't know what I want to do with my life yet. Then I used to pay more and more attention to what I was doing. And that's when I came home and told my parents, I think I want to do something with production or music. So my dad, he knows this guy named Byron Tress, who is now the president of Clear Vision Music Group. And I did a concert with Janae Go and Big Sean at the Delano. So I was just behind the scenes seeing how music really works, how production goes. And I was texting my parents all day like, I love this, like, it's so cool, it's amazing, I really want to do it. So over the past couple months, we've been developing Clear Vision, and we officially launched it at Next Level Music Conference, which was a conference that Clear Vision threw. And we signed our first artist 2 weeks ago. So ever since we launched the company, things have just been amazing. And Clear Vision, okay, first let's go over how the record was. First, in the music industry, it's a wild industry. It's really cutthroat, as I should say, and especially for artists. They are the last people to get everything, but they're the hardest working. They're the last to get their money, everything, everyone gets their money before them. So we made Clear Vision because we wanted to make a difference in the music industry. Clear Vision is more record label and management as well. Not only do we help our artists get their music out and we sign them, but we also teach them what they need to do to move on and not go broke from everything that they're doing. So that's really how Clear Vision was developed, because we wanted to make a difference. And my brother, who is also a CEO, basically does the same thing with football. So I kind of like backed off of him because I wanted the record label, but I see all the amazing things he's doing with his NFL players. So I'm like, okay, maybe we should really go into management too without actually having that title. So that's really just how Clear Vision came about. And from me being one of the youngest to own a record label in the music industry, I went to different events and started talking and speaking on my story, and I just feel blessed to be able to inspire other people with what I do. So that's basically what I do. That's what Clear Vision is. My mom's gonna hand out my business cards, and that's how you can reach me. You can reach me best by email, and I answer right away. So thank you. Oh, any questions? Sorry.
What kind of music? Are you a genre or is it everything?
We're working on my genres. Are you artists?
No, I have a little niece who's an amazing singer. So.
Okay. Yeah, my mom's definitely gonna hand out all my business cards, so just contact me and we'll work things together. Any more questions?
So do you arrange for venues, or how? Give us an example of your day. I mean, how do you work this out?
How do I work this out? My
Yeah.
day is pretty hectic, but I still have to attend school. No, but first with the conference, we had an after party with 2 Chainz. So it's more like we arrange the venues, we arrange the artists, and then we have a concert in April that we've been working on. So everything that we do just comes together that more record labels don't do. So it's like we book artists at these different events, as well as we put the events together. So Clear Vision does everything. It's like a whole 360. So that's what we do.
Where did the name Clear Vision come from? I think it's a
Clear
wonderful
Vision
name.
came because after I was doing all the production and things, I was having dreams. And they were so clear. Like, I would wake up one morning and be like, Dad, I just had this dream, we're gonna throw a concert. And then, or next thing you know, we're throwing a concert. Or I say, Dad, I just had this dream, and our record label is gonna be huge, we're gonna work with this artist and that artist, then we work with 2 Chainz, and then I work with Big Sean. So then I'm like, these visions are clear as day, and that's where we came with Purpose. Everything just, it's been coming together, like, it's wild, it's amazing how everything's been coming together. It's God, exactly.
And so what, you've done something that's very impressive, someone your age, like a lot of times people think, say when I was 18, I was just still learning how to tie my shoes. But what advice or, what is it that brought you feel that gave you the ability to do what you're doing?
What gave me the ability to do what I do is, first of all, God, yes, but then the support of my family. I wouldn't say from when I was doing what I was doing in high school and I started to develop everything, people became distant from it. It's like I was taking myself to another level and people hated me more. So I could say that I have thick skin because I've gotten like a lot of rude comments, not only from people at school, but also on social media. So from them, I could have easily have given up on everything I was doing. But things I say to young people is, no matter what anyone says, don't give up. Because they're not the one who's going on the journey with you. They're not the one who's going to be at the top with you. They're the ones who just want to bring you down at the end of the day because they don't want to see you succeed. And from me just realizing that from when I was a child, that no one wanted to see me succeed besides my family, I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And now I see where I am today. They haven't helped me. They weren't there for me besides my family, and they were the ones who kept me going and kept me pushing. So one thing I always tell everyone is to never give up. No matter how far the dream sees it is, you're going to get there. That's all I have. Any more questions?
Please give a warm welcome to Mary.
It's such an honor to be a part of anything that Robert Zuckerman does because he makes the world a more beautiful, better place consistently.
I agree.
He's amazing. So it's really an honor to be here. I'm going to discuss mindfulness and happiness. And it was a really, I've always been obsessed with happiness. Who's happy? How come I don't feel happy? And I used to feel happy, but I'm not happy anymore. As a child, I was the most enthusiastic, happiest. And then all of a sudden, things started happening. I had 2 older sisters. One was 12, one was 8, and I was 4 when I first started recognizing that they were kind of formed a mean girl clique against me. And they sort of made me feel like a pest. So they would put me down and tease me and not include me. And one of the major human needs is acceptance. So while I was a little kid growing up, I also had the gift of having great parents, loving mother, loving father, great. So I, grow up and I don't realize that these filters are being put in me, that I'm taking these things on that are being reflected to me, and good and bad. And I go off to college. Working on a journalism degree, and I'm a teenager. I left home and went to school at 17. And when I turned 19, I was struggling. I didn't like my university. I wanted to switch universities and go further away from home, further from Northern California, and I wanted to go down to San Diego State, which is like a 9-hour drive. So I'm in the middle of switching schools, and my mother calls me up in November 5th and says, "Come home, I know you're struggling, and I really miss you, and I need you to come home." And I said, "Mom, I'm going to be home for Thanksgiving. Let me finish here with my friends at my school, and I'll drive home on Thanksgiving." Well, a week later, my mother died of an aneurysm. She was 48 years old, and I've never spoken about this to anyone. I've never spoken ever because I did not have the tools to deal with this loss. I suppressed it and I repressed it and I went into denial. And this life-changing event, I went home for the funeral. I acted like it wasn't happening and didn't happen. And I went back to San Diego. I went into denial and I was just like, I shut down emotionally, not knowing. And I started dating the wild guy that was a polo player, and I would get on the horses and I would speed. I was just like, entertain me so I don't have to think, so I don't have to feel. And I never could feel happiness. I could feel excitement. That was it. So I went through destructive, dangerous things and got a job training polo ponies. So I was speeding, 30 miles an hour on a horse, hanging off, getting it used to the mallet. Was thrown a few times, but I managed to bounce back up. So after I graduated, got my degree in journalism, I ended up moving up to LA with a group of friends. It seemed like I didn't know. I was like, okay, now what do? I feel lost. So I went with my friends, who seemed like a base of security to me. I had very great friends, which is important in life, to really pick people that are in your corner. So I went to LA, which is very common for broken girls to end up in LA. Where do you go if you're broken? And guys. And so I went there and I became an actress. And I started studying at Lee Strasberg Theater Institute. And the best thing about being an actress was I got to be somebody else. I got to just get out of myself and be somebody else. Well, I worked on 7 films and different TV shows, and Robert was at the top level of Hollywood. I was there, probably we were there at the same time, but we didn't meet. But I was around the top actors, the famous, the rich, the famous, and I got an opportunity I was like, they must be happy. Let me look behind this curtain and see what their formula and their success plan is. So I go and I look, and I'm meeting these actors, and they are rich and famous. I said, if I had what they have, I'd be happy. They were not any happier. And I was like, well then if they're not happy, who's happy? And I really had this obsession. And I was doing things, and one of the things about them, why aren't they happy? We know a few that are. Robert and I have another mutual friend, they're very happy. But I was like, why aren't they happy? And I had asked them, why do you have so much anxiety if you have all this? And they said, because I'm worried about, will I get another job? And I said, but you have a TV series. Yeah, but it's ending in May. Will I ever work again? So it's inherent, no matter what. Your mind is worried. So what happened is I needed to look elsewhere. I got out of LA. I was emotionally shut down, so I was like, why can't I my friends are getting married. And during this time, my father got sick, and he also passed away. And so now I'm like this adult orphan with not a great relationship with my siblings. And I'm just like, okay, let me move 3,000 miles away and find happiness. Well, I moved to Miami. And Miami's an interesting city. It's got this vibrational, well, like Jon Stewart said, it's a vibrational, the only things that happen, the only emotions felt in Miami are sex and anger. And so, it's got a vibration. So you can get caught up in that energy real quick. So I'm saying, all right, but also the beautiful thing about Miami is that there's incredible people here. It's like an artist's amazing place. So I was lucky enough to meet through Joey Crutel, the producer of Ballers on HBO. He has another friend, and they were teachers. He and his brother are teachers, and they teach mindfulness, and they teach tapping into your inner self, and that's where the happiness lies. It's not out here in the rich and the famous and the fast cars and fancy things. You have to go inward. And they say, okay, self-love. Well, I have a lot of going on. I don't feel self-love. I wish I'd gone home the week before my mom. I have guilt. I have shame. I have and it's stuck, and that's the key. When something bad happens to you, it gets stuck inside of you, and then it bubbles up, and you reflect it out onto everyone around you in your personal life, and it prevents you from tapping into yourself, into the white light source, God, that is your inherent birthright. It is in you. So that's the problem. What do we do about it? What is the solution? How do you get from the anxiety and searching for happiness to actually feeling happy? Well, I'm happy to say that I met a wonderful man. I did a lot of introspective, and I met a wonderful man, and I built slowly, and I have this beautiful family. I went through a lot, and I wake up every morning and I say, I can't believe I'm madly in love with this man. And I look out and I say, I can't believe I have this life, and I can't believe I actually feel happy. Where does that come from now? It comes from understanding, and this is the most important thing, is that your mind chatters constantly. And your thoughts are not you. You have to understand, your thoughts are as random as if you went into a movie and you watched a movie and somebody else directed it. Your thoughts, like, oh, why does she have a record label and I don't? I'm just as this, I'm that, I should have that. Who does she think she is? She's so cute. What, she really is starting to bother me. So I'm going to put it down on you to make you have to feel that you have to change so that will accept you. Well, this is the problem, and then I found myself having arguments with my sister that happened when I was 12, and why am I arguing in my head? I could have won that argument if I had thought of this at the time. These are all negative thoughts that are, and you have to learn that your mind chatters all the time. And here's the key: lean back. Let the voice go. Know that you are not your thoughts. If you are like, oh, she's so cute, I wish she'd walk in front of that bus and get hit. No, that's not your thought. That's not you. Then I could have that job. I would be the CEO. No, that is not you. You let those thoughts go and go, wow. There's a Pink Floyd song, and they have a line in it saying, there's a lunatic living in my head, and it's not me. That is what you have. Then the first step is awareness. Once you're aware that you are not your thoughts, I'll leave him and that'll teach him. He'll start picking up his shoes. No, you're not going to leave him, and that thought is not even you. So once you identify that these thoughts are constantly, and your thoughts create emotions, and then your emotion broadcasts who you are to the world, and now you're attracting and you're operating on a lower vibrational frequency than what you are born to operate on. So you become aware of your thoughts and just watch yourself and go, oh, that negative thought popped in, that's interesting, and let it go along the conveyor belt out through you, back through the universe. A bad thing happened. It got stuck in me. I didn't have the tools to deal with it at the time. So now I look back, I have regrets, I have guilt. There is a zero cost benefit to having regrets and guilt. The cost is 100% and the benefit is zero. So, who's going to invest in that? You have to catch yourself. So once you're aware that your thoughts are not yourself, now you have to actively say, all right, I'm going to let that go. The minute my mind starts saying, I'm afraid of speaking in front of people, I can't do it, I have nothing to say, these people are working and no. That's a mindful thought that comes from when I was 4 years old getting picked on. Those are things in there. So you go, oh, okay, let me let that go. And you process it out. It hurts going in, it hurts coming out. Let it go and travel light. And once you do that, now you're aware, like, okay, now I am not just going to go engage in the thought and just go down the rabbit hole. I am actually going to choose which thought captures my attention. And I'm also going to choose to think positively. Put your positivity on like you're putting on a jacket every morning. And you choose to focus on that. What you focus on is what will bring you to the next frequency, higher level of frequency. You will be broadcasting it. It's like an invisible thing that you broadcast. What are you broadcasting? Competition? No. That's from a feeling of lack and less than. So we want to have self-love. That's where you start. Self-love. Don't be like, oh, what can I change? No, that's an act of self-violence. I want you to be like, right now, I'm perfect. I'm in the moment. I'm tapped into the white light, and I accept myself. And you just keep doing it, and it's a practice. And the mindfulness comes into watching your thoughts, and the self-acceptance is when you get a negative thought, you let it go. And you just start practicing yoga, meditation. It quiets the mind chatter down, and it teaches you to go back to your heart center. And so that is the importance of yoga. It's a practice to quiet your mind. Mindfulness, it's a practice to quiet your mind and get you in touch. And I do it all day when I start losing it. And the self-acceptance, I remember I was sitting on Lincoln Road having a coffee, and I was criticizing myself. I was like, I just wasn't feeling, I don't know, I was feeling heavy or fat or something or whatever. And I was like, oh, I should need to buy a bikini, but I hate trying them on. And this girl goes walking by, and she's in a thong, and she must have weighed 300 pounds, and she's walking by, and she has like cellulite down her legs, and she's walking by, and she's like, you know you like it. And I'm like, here she is enjoying herself, and I'm sitting over here like, oh, I'm afraid of a bikini. And I'm like, I want what she has. That is awesome. And it was one of those wake-up moments. You have to love yourself. You have to have that acceptance. And I'll tell you, the moment that I woke up to this was in Hollywood. While I was an actress, I was doing all these unconscious things, trying to be accepted, trying to be liked. And I was doing a habit that I wasn't even aware of. And I was at Anna Strasberg's house. She's the wife of Lee Strasberg, who inherited Marilyn Monroe's estate. So she's there, and she invites me to a party. I was in the play that Anna Strasberg put on, and she's there, and she has this beautiful rose garden, and she has the people in the school there that were in the play, and I'm trying to fit in with the other people, and her best friend is actress Sophia Loren. I'd never met Sophia Loren, and I was new in Hollywood, and all of a sudden I look up, and here comes Sophia Loren walking down to the party on this little grass slope. She's barefoot, walking into the party with this long, flowy white dress, and the breeze is going against her magnificent body. Her skin is this copper, beautiful color. Her green eyes are sparkling, and she has this beautiful smile on her face. And she's walking down the hill, and Anna introduces her to me. And I'm just like, oh, wow. So I go about, and I'm interacting with people, and at the end of the party, she comes up to me and says, puts her face very close to mine, and she holds my face, and she said, Mariana, stop trying to make yourself small to fit in. No matter how small you make yourself, they're not going to like you anyway. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know that I was saying, oh, if I tell them all the problems I have, they're gonna like me, and I'll be small so that they'll accept me. No, you don't wanna live in your problems. You wanna live in your true light, the beautiful person, whatever is going on in your life, of your white light and who you are in that moment. And it's very important for mindfulness. The key is to be in the present moment. Let the past go. You're not in the future. All of the things that you're trying to do and control, you've got to go back to your source, because control, competition, they're all stem from lack. So the control and what you need, your 5-year plan and all of that, it's good to have a plan, but you can't get caught up in your mind. You also need to step back and be in the moment and the beautiful world that's unfolding in front of you, because you will miss it. You will be living your thoughts. You won't be living your life. And your thought, remember, they're a lunatic. You got a lunatic in your head. So the happiness in life comes from mindfulness. And if we can learn that when we're little or teach other, I'm just happy I learned it now, because I can say I am truly happy, and it's a choice, and I go to teachers and I enjoy being here every moment I heard, every word I heard. I was completely engaged, and I will leave this room as a richer person. So what I would say is, if anybody would like, there's 3 resources on YouTube that are free that I start with that I think are great teachers. One of the teachers is here in Florida, in Gainesville, and he is a New York Times best-selling author. He wrote The Untethered Soul, and my favorite, which is The Surrender Experiment, which you can listen to the book on YouTube, and he's reading it to you. The other is Patrick Connor. He comes to Miami often. I love Miami, but he lives in India. He's another one who's he's with, his teachings are free on sharmata.org. And if anyone would like to reach me, you can reach me on my email is crewmore@gmail.com, and Facebook, I'm Mariana Cruz /Cruz Twins, and I can refer you to phenomenal teachers. But I think the secret to life and happiness is exactly what is happening in this room today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any questions? Yes.
I don't know, so much of what you said kind of rang true, reminded me of things, but not really a question, but I just kind of want to reflect on what you were saying, because a couple of years ago I was invited to be a guest speaker at the Westin Diplomat Hotel. They have a very fancy spa there, and they were starting a speaker series, and so I was one of 2 speakers on the first night. There was I forget her name, but a very renowned dermatologist from Boca, and she spoke first, and she said, she spent like a whole hour basically talking about products that you have to apply to your face to become beautiful. And so I got up there and I said, well, I've been photographing people for 40 years, and for me, beauty is when someone who accepts who they are. And I can even see her in the audience kind of nodding her head and agree with me. But for me, that's what it is. You talk about happiness. I also sort of refer to happiness as contentment, like self-acceptance, because there's going to be negative things that come in your life and sadness, but how we deal with it and accept it and move through it is part of it too, I think. Anyhow.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly, but it was very confusing to me. I wanted self-acceptance, but how do you get there?
Yeah.
It's a daily practice of watching your thoughts. Like your emotions can trigger one emotion, your thought triggers emotions, and then that emotion can trigger 1,000 more thoughts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then you're in a loop.
Like you say, it's a matter of choice too, how we choose to see it.
It's a consciousness. And what you have to just focus, what is capturing your attention? Your thoughts are objects. They're objects that capture your attention. And just make sure that those are going in a positive way and in a loving way to yourself. And then you'll broadcast that, and you'll give it to others, and people will react to you differently. It's an invisible, everything is vibrational. Everything has vibration, and that's a law of the universe. And the law of the universe is everything's moving through it. Everything's on the go. And if you have something negative and you store it in you, which we all do, then you didn't let it go, and you have to learn to release it. And you have to say, okay, I'm going to be conscious and let that go.
Your presentation was, amazing, because so many people don't get a testimony of how really this happens to everyone. One of my favorite sayings is, don't think about the past so much because it's going to get you depressed, and don't think about the future too much because you're going to get anxiety. So staying present in the moment is a regular practice, and people don't realize that. They get caught up in their problems and crises and this and that, And before you know it, you are just up to here, acting like a maniac, you know, in traffic, and it's like, it's overwhelming. And, you know, so much of what you said, I don't know if you remember Alan Watts, back in this, you know, late 60s, 70s, he started this whole movement, you know, and you can also see his work in YouTube. And Eckhart Tolle, he's an amazing person. And he was like 2 years just sitting on a park bench, just meditating, because basically that's what he wanted to do at that time. And he came up with these ideas of what you're saying as well. So it is a practice. It's not something, you know, fairy dust is going to come and happiness you're going to be. No, it's a practice. You have to practice being happy.
Exactly, that's a beautiful insight. And one of the things that the keys was, if it's over on the outside, it's over on the inside. And that's what you have to be conscious of. It happened, you had an argument, somebody yelled at you and say, what a great experience, I get to be here in life, having somebody upset, and I'm not going to engage in the negativity, and I'm just going to let it go and let it go. It's over. Over on the outside, over on the inside. You're having experience, everything, bad experience is a teacher, a good experience is a blessing. Good passes through, bad passes through. It's all a beautiful lesson. Life is a schoolyard.
Schoolyard.
School.
It is.
Not schoolyard, school. The best university.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Your question, right?
Yeah. Well, question-ish, comment-ish. I think something that I know personally, I've done a lot, and I know a lot of people with different abilities that do the same thing, is compare ourselves to others. We feel like we have to live up to a certain standard in society, like, oh, I'm 31, why haven't I, been in a serious relationship, or I'm not married, or something like that. And when I stopped comparing myself to others is when my life shifted to, it's okay to be where you are, it's okay to, be where you are in life, and just leave it alone, and you move forward. For as long as we continue to compare ourselves to others, we're not going to get anywhere. So that's
Exactly. And it's funny because we live in a society that puts expectations on and pressures, and you're all constantly being fed. I was married in my late 30s. I would have the same pressure, but I was emotionally unavailable. I had to go back to what the root cause was. It wasn't that I could have gotten married. I had a block, and so it was the right. You have to, the what is it called? This consensus consciousness. And that's being fed to us all the time. What is the news? It's every bad thing that happened around the world. That's all it is. It's just bad. Every bad news, and it's all there on your iPad. And you're like, oh God, I can't even go to sleep now. I'm worried about the dog in Wisconsin that somebody left out in the cold. So, and I can't sleep because I'm worried about this dog. Everything is just bad. So you have to be married by 30. You have to have this. You don't, there isn't, and that's what we're fed all the time. And once you become aware of it, we can say no. That's they have a saying. Okay, a billion flies can't be wrong. Eat shit. So just because it's a consensus, it's not what you want to do. It doesn't mean it's right, and it doesn't mean it's living in the higher way. And that's what we need. We need the higher way that connects, the universality of I see your spirit. I can see your spirit. I don't see anything. And you're saying, well, I had to overcome this disability. I walk in for a job interview and they see disability. No, I see your beautiful spirit. All I see is like this white light. And that's what I see. And that's because I mindfully tap into the light and what you broadcast. I see what you broadcast. I see you've done that. I see that it's part of your life. I can see it. And we're unconsciously broadcasting that to everybody that comes in the grocery store. We're broadcasting that. So it's a beautiful thing to tap in and be assisted, and not just have to put it on my shoulders and have this big personality to be like, hey, go let rest, personality. Go rest, ego. Go get under the tree and rest in the grass. Let me tap in and get all of it off my shoulders and realize I don't have to do it all. It will come, it will unfold. You're one conversation away from meeting your husband. One introduction away from meeting, yes, you are. One person introduces you and you're tapped in and your light, your spirit see each other. That's it, one.
So ends our our presenters. Don't forget your essentials there.
Yeah.
But what you say rings, so there's so many things that you touched on, but basically, for me, what I got out of it is like, is how we choose to see things. You know, there's a parable from, let me back up here so I'm in good camera position here. About in ancient China, there was a fisherman who gets up one morning on a misty morning, and he gets in his little rowboat and starts rowing down the river, and he sees in the mist this other boat coming toward him, and he shouts out to the boat to let him know not to change his course, and the boat keeps coming toward him, and he shouts, and he gets more and more agitated as the boat keeps coming toward him, and he gets very angry, and finally he's shouting and shouting, and the boat smashes into his boat, and he sees that it was an empty boat that came adrift. And so by seeing it a different way, all of a sudden his anger turns into laughter and mirth because he sees it in a different way. And that's so much about life, is how we choose to perceive things affects how we feel about them, I think. So anyway, everybody here, give yourself a round of applause for coming here today. Really, just amazing. And this is just a small effort. But I think every day, like what I say personally, we're all here on this planet for however much time we have, and there's many opportunities every day. You don't have to be a member of a church or a big organization to be able to walk down the street and do good. As you know, my career ended, and I had a big drop in income, and I'm very limited income now. But I never turned down anyone when they asked for help on the street, and I have a habit now where if I go into a store like Target or someplace where I go up in Aventura a lot, I don't put the change I get from the cashier in my pocket. I keep it in my hand, and I go outside, and there's always someone that can use it. And it's like I can't afford that, but I can't afford not to do it. And so there's just many opportunities. Even the young men at Target, or like for instance. Yesterday I dropped my sister off to get her hair done, and there's a young woman in Liberty City who I've been helping out. I was doing a photography workshop at the Holtz Children's Hospital for pediatric cancer patients, and last year there was a patient there, not for cancer, but she had a transplant or gallbladder removal. This young woman at the time, she was 14, from Liberty City, and she was telling me, well, we were doing our photography workshop, Mr. Robert, I want to be an actress. And something about how she said that to me really, I believed her. Her name is Shanice. And so I said, well, you need two things. Well, you need two things. You need a good headshot. And, excuse me. We need to have you learn a monologue, or, do a monologue and get on video, because that's what casting directors are going to want to see. So we did a monologue, and it turned out she's, for a girl who's like, whole world is like the 8 square blocks around her home, she's an amazing actress. She's got real natural talent. I said, choose a monologue, and so she chose something from Alice in Wonderland that she did in like a perfect British accent. And I go, how did this girl learn this? But she did it. And then we did something else. I said, well, let's do another one. So she chose something from The Color Purple. And so now we have 2 amazing monologues. And like yesterday, she had an audition that she got today, and she needed a new headshot. We didn't like the old headshot she did, so when my sister was at her hair place, I drove down, a couple of miles to her home, and we did a headshots, and I emailed it to her, so now she has that. And it's just like there's opportunities for just helping people and doing good every day. So that's kind of what this is about, and that's kind of like what my mission is while I'm here. So anyway, just want to thank you all for coming. There's sort of a related project that I'm doing, and this is called, what you were talking about, how the teaching and learning are everywhere. I've started an initiative, I call it the Infinite Classroom, which is the fact that teaching and learning can happen anywhere you go. Like I go into the stores or I interact with people, and that's what the Infinite Classroom is. I have another thing that I'm starting, which I call Thought Furnace. The Thought Furnace is along a similar lines, but I'm working with students to come up with ideas to make the world a better place. Just simple things Like one of the things we're working on is when you're driving down the street, like now we have this capability, but we don't really do it, but driving down the street, and because trees have grown over a stop sign, you don't really see it, and you all of a sudden you have to stop short. Well, why can't cars have something now where they can announce to you, stop sign in 200 feet? We have that technology, so that's something we're working on. I'm working on something with students where we're working on apps that make the world paperless, less paper, because we're just inundated with paper. We don't need it. Paper is really a thing of the past. Fossil fuels are a thing of the past. Our whole world that we live in now, where we have roadways and stores, this is something that you're aware of in your field. Our world is built up around the car, and that's how our whole modern society is. Getting in a car, driving somewhere. Fossil fuel, outmoded. So there's a lot of things, to think about. So that's another thing. So if we're going to be having, probably not this school year, but starting next academic year, meetings of students to continue on with thought furnace and coming up with different ideas. Anyway, thank you all for coming here.